In Right Now, Wrong Then, a filmmaker visits a city, meets a young woman, and the day plays out twice. But beneath this repetition lies a sharp examination of sincerity, gender, ethics, and how everyday Korean social rituals structure human behavior. Hong Sang-soo uses minimalist repetition to expose how small social gestures, bowing, drinking etiquette, modesty, silence, shape the Korean identity on screen, while the film's formal minimalism aligns it with global festival aesthetics. Right Now Wrong Then is a film obsessed with small variations. A single day is retold twice, almost the same, but not exactly. The film's doubled structure is not just a narrative gimmick, however. It reveals how behavior is performed, how gender expectations in Korean society shape interaction, and how a slightly altered tone or perspective can entirely shift meaning. Through Hong Sang-soo's repetition, the film produces what scholars refer to as a global-local hybridity. Soo's brand of cinema is evidently a product of transnational festivals, their aesthetics of slow cinema and such, but it is also grounded deeply in Korean everyday life and nationality. Since the late 90s, Hong Sang-soo has become one of the most internationally circulated Korean auteurs. This is despite him working almost entirely outside the Hallyu commercial system. His films regularly appear at Berlin, Locarno, and Cannes festivals, forming a global circulation method distinct from K-dramas or spectacle-driven Korean blockbusters. To appropriately situate Hong's work, then, it's important to understand the broader context and meaning behind Hallyu. As Kyun-hyun Kim argues in Virtual Hallyu, Korean cinema in the global era operates within this dense network of circulation that mixes its local identity with global aesthetic forms. But while Hallyu is often associated with commercial aesthetics like melodrama, spectacle, and high emotional volume, Hong's approach stands out. His films engage in hybridizations of local and global, as described by scholar Kim Do-kyun. However, this is done through the minimalist style and its alignment with the art house festival expectations opposed to mainstream platforms like Netflix. Now, to analyze how Hong's employment of art house formalities in film affect the meaning of the work, let's analyze these two repeated scenes. The form evidently supports the intent of being attentive and sensitive, almost a reflection of Korean social inner workings. Looking at the first cafe scene, in part 1, Chun-soo leans too close. His compliments, "You have real talent," come out with an unearned intensity. Hong shoots this in a single static long take. There is no cut to relieve the awkwardness. We experience Hee-jung's discomfort as duration. A half-second downward glance, the tightening of her shoulders. This is where Hong's minimalism works. Instead of dramatic conflict, the tension lives in micro-expressions, culturally coded within Korean politeness. Now compare this with part 2. Chun-soo listens more before speaking. His compliment is softer, delivered with hesitation. The same static framing now produces warmth. The difference is tiny, but it's significant. This is Hong's point. Everyday interactions are not shaped by grand actions, but by how carefully or carelessly social and unspoken expectations are handled. The form is supplementing this point in its use of duration, stillness, and ultimately realism. By removing the form as a key point of contention, opposite of, say, a blockbuster, the subject of the film becomes what is in the frame. These small exchanges and dynamics reveal to the world a more genuine Korean experience. In many ways, Hong's style resonates with what James Quant famously labeled as slow cinema. It is found in the static compositions, the long takes, real-time dialogue, and a genuine rejection of spectacle or straightforward entertainment. Right Now, Wrong Then emphasizes the mundane, which is why the formal magic trick of the film repeating is so effective. To illustrate this, take the temple scene. The scene offers a clear intersection of local identity and transnational form. In both versions, Hong holds the shot for a long duration as Hee-jung inhabits the space, and Chun-soo watches. Structurally, this resembles slow cinema, as a long take, but the content is even more explicitly local with the setting. The silence between them, the stone courtyard, the modesty of everything. Details like these evoke everyday Korean religiosity and manners without offering any particular explanation. Festival audiences may read this through a universal art cinema lens, especially given Hong's style being aligned with that of global festivals, but a Korean viewer recognizes the cultural codes shown here: humility before a sacred site, restraint in public emotion, and the layered expectations between an older male artist and a younger woman. The film's double narrative structure, one story told twice with small shifts, creates what scholars would call properties of authorship: repeating motifs, self-reflexive storytelling, and an emphasis on variation. Hong, through repeating these scenes, re-emphasizes global form but local meaning. But more overtly, repeating these scenes is an emphasis on the importance of subtlety in Korean social dynamics. In the drinking scene, for example, Korean drinking etiquette becomes the film's central ethical measurement. In part 1, Chun-Soo violates the social codes. He drinks too fast, interrupts Hee-jung, overshares, performs arrogance. Hong emphasizes this with one static camera angle, forcing us to watch Chun-Soo collapse into a sloppy confession. His drunken insistence, "Tell me honestly, do you like me?" exposes the gender imbalance of the situation. In part 2, the ritual unfolds differently. Chun-Soo pours more carefully, waits for Hee-jung to drink first, and listens instead of dominating the space. The exact same ritual produces a different moral outcome. Hong uses repetition to show how ethical behavior is not abstract. It is performed through ritual: how we pour a drink, how we pause, how we speak to someone who has less social power. This is again shown in the concluding screening sequences. The director goes from being angered to humble. It shows that sincerity is not an essence. It is produced through behavior, through tone, through rhythm, awareness, through not imposing on others. This ethical reading is central to the film's meaning, yet it also connects Hong's transnational circulation. The global festival auteur persona versus the film's critique of that very persona. Deleuze's time image describes moments where cinema break away from action and instead reveals duration, time that simply flows. Hong's films, especially this one, lean into these suspended moments. The long, awkward pauses in Right Now, Wrong Then don't advance the plot. They reveal the characters' interiority, uncertainty, desire, embarrassment, and much more about the culture they're from. These time images operate as a form of transnational film language, but they also root the spectator in the complexities of Korean social interaction. In these contexts, silence may have as much meaning as speech. As Right Now, Wrong Then travels globally through the festival circuit, the minimalism was read as sophistication, Western critics praising its structure, its repetitions, and awkwardness. Korean reception, however, may focus more directly on the recognizable social behaviors present: drinking etiquette, the gendered awkwardness, the embarrassment of failed sincerity, the dynamics of old and young, of profession, of talent, of art. These differing readings align with what Hallyu theorists note as global-local disjunctures, the same text producing divergent meanings across audiences. In Right Now, Wrong Then, Hong Sang-soo creates a cinema that is simultaneously transnational and rooted in everyday textures of Korean life. His minimalist repetition links him to global festival aesthetics, while his attention to gesture, ritual, and social nuances reaffirm him in this local identity. The film becomes hybrid in its form, and that makes the global-local tensions centered in contemporary Korean cinema even more visible. Through minimalist repetition, Right Now, Wrong Then reveals how the smallest gestures carry the weight of culture, power, and ethics. It is rooted deeply in local Korean social realities, yet it forms positions within global art cinema. Hong Sang-soo shows that sometimes it's as simple as saying the same thing differently.